capital to save the world wetland from disappearing and to restore those we have degraded. हर साल 2 फरवरी को विश्व स्तर पर विश्व वेटलैंड्स दिवस मनाया जाता है। इस दिन को मनाए जाने का उद्देश्य लोगों में पृथ्वी के लिए वेटलैंड्स यानी आर्द्र भूमि द्वारा निभाई जाने वाली महत्वपूर्ण भूमिका के बारे में जागरूकता बढ़ाना है। World Wetlands Day is celebrated each year on 2nd of February to raise awareness about wetlands. This day also marks the anniversary of the Convention on Wetlands, which was adopted as an international treaty in the year 1971. Now, this World Wetlands Day is accepted as an official United Nations event. Once again, I want to convey my heartfelt gratitude to our honorable guests and dignitaries present amongst us today. It is indeed a glorious, glorious moment to have such distinguished guests with us. Thank you. Hum aapke aabhari hain. Today's third day webinar, which is on the theme Taking Wetlands Conservation Beyond Protected Areas. If we really talk about the protected areas, they are the cornerstone of biodiversity conservation. They maintain the key habitats, provide refugia, allow for species migration and movement, and ensure the maintenance of natural processes across the landscape. But today, we are here to discuss about conservation that is beyond these protected areas. I would also like to say that the conventional, that is the command and control approaches of protected areas are increasingly found limited in case of wetlands when decision-making needs to accommodate the diverse views and collaborate with a range of stakeholders. So the conservation of wetlands beyond protected areas is the call for today. So ladies and gentlemen, without a further ado, it's time for the opening remarks by Dr. Vivek Saxena ji, Indian Forest Service Managing Director, Haryana Forest Development Corporation, Government of Haryana, and ex-country head International Union for Conservation of Nature, that is IUCN India. A man with dynamic personality, brilliance, good perception, and perfect skills. He has contributed the most in the Forest Department, Haryana. So I would like to request Sir to kindly give his opening remarks and brief all of us about the webinar series on wetlands and welcome all the participants in the conference. Over to you, Sir.
Thank you, Anchal. And at the outset, I welcome all the dignitaries, panelists, very eminent panelists, and all the participants that despite being too busy schedule, and especially on the Saturday, the interest which has been generated for the wetland conservation, that is really very, very encouraging to all of us. And special thanks to our Director General Forest and Special Secretary, Shri C.P. Goyal sir. We all also congratulate him for taking over as DG Forest and Special Secretary recently. And I also welcome our former DG Forest and Special Secretary Siddhanda sir, who is also ex-member of National Green Tribunal, and also presently he is the chairperson of the Odisha Real Estate Regulatory Authority. Nayak sir, everybody knows he can be designated as a wetland savior of the not only country but also at the international level. The former PCCF of Odisha. Welcome, Patnaik sir. And Ritesh, heading the South Wetland International South Asia. And they have been really a great support for facilitating these webinar series. And with continuous their support and networking, we are able to at least have all this webinar series on very, very relevant topics, which we started on 24th of January this month only, and the last will be on the 5th of February. And that has been quite an encouraging sign that the type of participation and the type of leadership which has supported these webinar series, that is really encouraging to each and everyone. And I also welcome our Principal Chief Conservator of Forests, Wildlife and Chief Wildlife Warden, Jagdish Chandraji, who has been a continuous source of inspiration for and facilitating for organizing this webinar series. Thank you, sir. And we are expecting two more panelists, Dr. S.P. Yadav, who is also heading this National Tiger Conservation Authority as a member secretary and additional director general of Forest, and presently is also additional director general of Forest Conservation as well as Wildlife and member secretary of the Central Zoo Authority. So I think he will join the course of time. And one more colleague from the UNEP, Manisha, I think she is also about to join. So welcome everyone. As we know that Wetland Day is celebrated every year on 2nd of February after the adoption of the Ramsar Convention in 1971. Ramsar is a place in the Iran. And the most important part is in 2021 only, UN adopted a resolution to have UN Wetland Day. So this year, the Wetland Day is the first Wetland Day after the UN declaration for celebration of the Wetland Day. And the wetland is very, very important. That itself, with the time, we have all realized, because the urbanization and the development challenges have led to degradation and you can say decrease in extent of area of the wetlands, and the wetland which the ecosystem services which wetland provide, they have been getting diminished, and that has been realized quite late, but still there is a lot of time. And that is possible, as just before the webinar we were having a discussion with our DG Forest, CP Goel sir also, and he rightly said, and without the people's involvement and without the corporate sector support, it's not possible, and it should be only the people's movement. So one of the important theme which is present here, Wetland Day theme, is the wetland action for people and nature. So you have to have action, and you have to have the action for the nature and involving the citizens. So nature-based solutions is also key for the wetland management and wetland conservation. And nature-based solutions have been developed by and launched by the IUCN last year only during the World Conservation Congress. And Haryana has also taken a number of initiatives. That's why I'm also grateful to the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Government of India, that Honorable Minister himself decided that the national level celebration of the Wetland Day will be hosted in the state of Haryana. So really grateful on behalf of the state of Haryana to the ministry for considering Haryana to host the Wetland Day at Sultanpur National Park, which is in Gurgaon district, just around 50 kilometers from Delhi. And first time in Haryana, two important wetlands, that is Sultanpur National Park and Bhindawas in the Jhajjar district, which is also around 900 kilometers from Delhi. They have been designated as a Ramsar sites. But still lot needs to be done, because there are other challenges also, especially in Haryana, like we have a Bhatkal Lake in Faridabad, which used to be a sort of a wetland in which there used to be boating activities also, but now it has become totally dry. Now we are taking initiatives how to revive that. Similarly, there are a number of other such wetlands which need to be taken care of. But at the same time, involving people, Haryana has also taken one more initiative. That is the setting up of Haryana Pond Management, Pond and Waste Water Management Authority, and under which all the ponds, because in the villages there have been a traditional Johar system, which we used to sustain various type of water conservation or water needs of the human as well as cattle needs. But at the same time, over the period of time, the depletion of the water resources, depletion of the clean sources of the water, and at the same time, pollution of the waters because of the industrialization, the disposal of the wastewater, that has been really challenging. That's why the corporates and industries, they have to integrate, you can say, ethics into their business practices. It is not like that, suppose if they are doing some business and today they are discharging their effluents and water and just thinking that it will get automatically. So, but at the same time, you can see there some small amount of this, you can say, ignorance, it leads to what type of catastrophic crisis in the form of spread of various type of diseases and creating pollution in the drinking water sources that affects human health as well as the health of the cattle, and it in turn enters into the entire value chain, food chain, and in long run, it can even affect the sustainability of the businesses as reflected in the present COVID pandemic crisis also. Because if we don't take care of the nature, we disconnect ourselves with the nature, what nature has provided. So over the period of time, if we encroach upon the habitat of the wildlife, there is always a possibility to have such type of pandemic crisis because of the virus jump and like that. And we are all witnessing that what kind of catastrophe it can bring. And especially when we are talking today, on the very important theme that we are talking wetland conservation beyond protected areas. So protected areas, we certainly take care of many aspects. They have some sort of a formal governance mechanism, but we have to concern about the species conservation so that whenever we can have care for the nature, the biodiversity conservation, because that is also beyond the protected areas also, because species, they don't know the geographical artificial boundaries created by us in terms of the geographical boundaries of the states, countries, and continent. So with this theme, I think this webinar series has been started, and so that various deliberations which are being undertaken, so that one aspect is to sensitize and also to prepare a roadmap for further action by the all relevant stakeholders. So I will just summarize that this 5-episode webinar series, this is the third in the process. First, we had on 24th of January that on the theme of Ramsar sites, managing our crown jewels. Then followed by on January 27th, we had wetlands as nature-based solutions for climate change. Then today's is certainly that taking wetland conservation beyond protected areas. And on January 31st, the schedule is for the wetlands of Haryana conservation status and management needs. There may be slight change of the state because of the engagement of our Chief Minister, because you can see the interest which has been generated on January 31st webinar. Haryana Chief Minister as well as Union Minister Bhupender Yadav sir, they have confirmed for this webinar, but there may be some change of date which we will inform. And on February 5th, we will have a webinar on creating synergies between wetlands and water management. Our former chairperson, National Green Tribunal, Justice Satan Kumar ji, will be joining on February 5th, as well as Haryana Forest Minister, Shri Kanwar Pal ji. So you can see that the interest which has been generated on these webinars with the support of the highest level, you can say the political dignitaries as well as official dignitaries. And I'm really grateful once again to each and everyone, especially Ministry of Environment, Forest, our all partner organizations, Wetlands International. And with this, I just finish my welcome remarks, opening remarks, and over to Achal to take the webinar proceedings further today.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir, for your enlightenment and motivational words. You have conveyed a very strong message, a very powerful message about relating to the conservation of the wetlands, I must say, and a very brief, crisp and clear elaboration about the program. You are heartily welcome to our webinar series. Thank you so very much. Moving on. We are thankful to you, sir, for having spared your worthy time to be such an important part of this event. It's time to hear from Mr. Chandra Prakash Goyalji, Director General of Forest and Special Secretary, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. To throw some light on his background, Mr. Chandra Prakash Goyalji is the Director General of Forests and Special Secretary, Ministry of Environment and Forests and Climate Change. His academic achievements are that he is MSc in Mathematics, MSc in Forestry, and MBA as well. Mr. Goyalji, a 1986 batch Indian Forest Service officer. He is an alumni of Lucknow University, FRI, University of Cambridge, University of Edinburgh, and more, and has an experience of almost 20 years in field forestry. He has previously served as Principal Chief Conservator of Forest, Government of Uttar Pradesh. He has been an important part of the 2021 Indian State of Forest Report and the 19th meeting of National Tiger Conservation Authority. Also, I would like to share here that he has served as a joint secretary in the Indian Department of Biotechnology. Also, he bagged Best All-Round Forester Award for 1986 batch of Indian Forest Service. Also, Mr. Chandra Prakash Goyalji will be our chairperson for the panel discussion for today. We are honored by your gracious presence, sir. Over to you now.
Thank you, Ms. Arya. I think you have praised me more than enough. Good morning to all of you, and welcome to this webinar on World Wetland Day. I am especially thankful to Vivek Saxena and the Haryana Forest Department for inviting me to this webinar. Also, as this session is being live streamed, I will try to give more general details about the wetlands and their importance of protection and conservation. As we are aware, the wetlands play a very significant role in our life and are the hotspots of biodiversity. Wetlands can be commonly defined as the areas where water is the prime factor that determines the environment, types of flora and fauna of the place. The many definitions are there in different acts, enactments, and also the Ramsar, but more or less these are the areas where water is the prime factor. Many civilizations in history have been found near the wetlands. The Mesopotamian civilization between Euphrates and Tigris, the Indus Valley civilization on the banks of river Indus, and so many other civilizations that are example of the importance of wetlands for our lives and the society in general. This clearly portrays the significance of wetlands. Wetlands are, of course, ubiquitous. They are found everywhere from tundra to tropics and on every continent except Antarctica. Wetlands are full of life, and as per a survey, the wetlands cover only around 6 to 7% of the area of the earth, but still almost 40% of the species of plant and animals thrive in these wetlands. In India, there is around 7.5 lakh hectares area, 7.5 lakh wetlands covering almost 15.3 million hectares of area. There is a huge importance of wetlands in our ecosystem. If the forests are remarked as the lungs of the earth, the wetlands can be safely considered as kidney because they aid in filtering waste from the lands. Wetlands are useful in controlling carbon emission. They are a source of livelihood, a rich source of food and support plants and animal communities. Wetlands provide recreation activities and tourism, have historical, scientific, and cultural values. They help in prevention of floods, groundwater replenishment, and in combating climate change. In spite of all this, the wetlands, as we have heard from Vivek Saxena and before that, other discussions also, they are facing several threats due to which the land under wetland is reducing day by day. The major threat faced by the wetlands include the urbanization and anthropogenic pressure, dumping of solid waste by industries, exploitation of the land for food, wood and fodder, industrial and agriculture activities near the wetland, intoxicants and waste from industries and aquaculture, etc. Nearly 30% of the natural wetlands in India have been lost in the last 3 decades. As Vivek has rightly pointed out, the Badkal Lake has also almost it has finished. And we can also see that the Gurgaon area was also a wetland in maybe in not very in very recent history, and now we can see that all the wetlands are lost there. In India, we come to the main topic of the today's webinar, that protection of wetlands outside the protected areas. So we have designated certain areas of rich faunal and floral values as protected areas, which are given special status as per different constitutional measures. These areas have also several wetlands, which also get protection under these measures. For example, in UP, more than 90% of the wetlands that have got the Ramsar status are inside the forest areas and protected area system. I don't have the exact figures for the entire country, but I presume that almost 2/3 of our wetlands in the country will be outside this protected area network, and they are under enormous pressure. We have seen lakes in many tourist spots shrinking and getting polluted, like Vadkar Lake and others. The need to give them higher level of protection to such wetlands outside protected area is hence very important, and you can say immense. As we are all aware, there are several laws that remark conservation of wetlands, but they are not yielding desired results. The strategies and measures built on these lines of holistic and multidisciplinary approaches are needed in order to conserve and manage the wetlands. They should be based on scientific knowledge and ensure community participation. All the key stakeholders from diverse strata should come forward in the conservation of wetland. All stakeholders should realize that they have some duty towards these natural wetlands and should try to protect them. The Honorable Prime Minister's visionary program of Jal Jeevan Mission was a landmark step in our efforts to conserve and protect wetlands, wherein all the community members, including school children and villagers, were sensitized and were actually shown the examples how the wetlands can be protected. We must do all we can to raise universal awareness of the vital contributions wetland and water bodies make to biodiversity, climate mitigation and adaptation, fresh water availability, food security, and thereby to our prosperity, well-being, and existence. We have to integrate nature-based solutions in our efforts. International community has also come forward to conserve and wisely use the wetlands, and the Intergovernmental Treaty to Conserve and Wisely Use the Wetland was signed in 1971 in the city of Ramsar. Presently, around 2,300 sites throughout the world has been earmarked as wetlands of international importance, out of which 47 wetlands are in India. And as has been mentioned by Vivek, I think 2 more will be added in near future. To raise awareness on the values wetland have to the nature and society, World Wetland Day is being observed on 2nd February all over the globe since 1995 to mark the day of adoption of Ramsar Convention. And this year, United Nations has also adopted as a Wetland Day to be celebrated in the United Nations framework. Each year, Wetland Day is linked to a specific theme for drawing attention of the global community in pressing issues related to wetland conservation. The 2022 theme, the Wetland Action for People and Nature, focuses on the significant role communities and citizens can play in halting and reversing wetland degradation and loss by taking affirmative action. At the end, I will like to thank Haryana Forest Department for organizing a series of events, including webinars to sensitize different stakeholder groups, officials entrusted with wetland management, researcher community, media and other on the range of values wetland provide and the ways in which these values can be mainstreamed in policy, decision making, and our protection and conservation programs at various levels. Thank you very much, and Jai Hind.
Thank you so very much, sir. I think you have very rightly covered all the aspects which are relating to today's webinar, that is conserving the wetlands beyond protected areas. And yes, you have rightly said that wetlands are full of life. You have shared some important facts about the same, and community participation needs to be ensured in order to achieve our aim. Thank you so very much. So now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the panel discussion. I would like to request our esteemed panel to share their expert inputs on the following aspects.
Achal, just 1 minute. I think if since we have all eminent people, we can just play that Prithvi Manthan song because Siddhant Das sir is also here.
Absolutely, sir. I just got the update. We are going to play the Prithvi Manthan after our first panelist. Okay. Will that be okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, sir. So as I was mentioning, I would request the panelists to give their expert inputs on the following aspects. Number one is, how can convergence of wetlands with developmental planning be ensured? Number two, how can we bring affirmative behavior change amongst citizens for wetlands? And number three, how can alternate financing arrangements for wetlands conservation be secured? So let me have the privilege to introduce the great panelists for the day. Today we have with us Dr. S.P. Yadav ji, Dr. Ajit Patnaik ji, Dr. Vivek Saxena ji, and Ms. Manisha Chaudhary ji with us. We heartily welcome you. So now I would request our first panelist of the day, Dr. S.P. Yadav ji, Indian Forest Service Member Secretary, National Tiger Conservation Authority, Additional Director General, Wildlife and Forest Conservation, Member Secretary, Central Zoo Authority. Throwing some light on his achievements as well, I would like to share Dr. S.P. Yadav ji is an Indian Forest Service officer of 1989 batch from Uttar Pradesh cadre. He is an Additional Director General, Project Tiger, and Member Secretary, National Tiger Conservation Authority. Dr. Yadav ji is trained by WII and Smithsonian Institution, United States of America, in tiger conservation and holds a PhD degree. He has played a very vital role in successful tiger conservation in India while working in the NTCA, that is National Tiger Conservation Authority, for almost 7 years during its formative years. He has distinction of working as Assistant Secretary General in the Global Tiger Forum, which happens to be the only intergovernmental international organization in the field of tiger conservation in the world. Dr. Yadav ji was conferred with the prestigious Rajiv Gandhi National Award for Wildlife Conservation by the Government of India. We welcome you, sir. I think it's an honor to have you with us today. I would like to hand over the virtual platform to you. You may take over.
Thank you, Anchal. Am I audible?
Absolutely, sir. Go ahead.
Right. Thank you, respected Director General of Forest and Special Secretary, Goel sir, Siddhanta sahab, Ajit Patnaik sahab, and all respected panelists. Thanks for inviting me today. Very warm good morning to all of you. In fact, the topic wetland management beyond PAs to me is little, I could not understand that, because wherever wetlands are, they are important. Whether they are inside protected areas or outside protected areas, they have their ramifications across entire landscape. So I will be speaking on my experience with tiger reserves vis-a-vis the wetlands. You all are aware, Shri Goel sir has told the importance of wetlands, and I think in mitigation of climate change, they have very major role to play. Recently, during the 19th NTCA meeting, we have come out with a water atlas of tiger reserves. As you may be aware, there are 51 tiger reserves in the country covering 2.2% of geographical area under these tiger reserves, and more than 350 sweet water streams. Either they originate from tiger reserves or they have majority of their catchment.
Yadav sir, Mr. Yadav sir, are you with us?
I think he has some audio problem.
Yes, sir, I can see that.
So till I think he corrects his audio, you can play the Prithvi Manthan, and Meanwhile,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely, sir. So, ladies and gentlemen, due to some network issue on Yadav sir's part, so we are going to make this webinar series a little more interesting and entertaining at the same time. In order to further embellish and exemplify the whole concept of climate change that we are talking from the first webinar series, we have something for you. Presenting Prithvi Manthan, the second churning that fuses Shiv Tandav Stotram with the concept of climate change and pollution. Special credit goes to Mrs. Susmita Das ji, renowned singer and filmmaker. Can we have the video, please? Shaurajit, I request you to please play the video. All right. Okay, so I guess there is some network issue. There could be some network issue. And SP Yadav sir has joined again. Sir, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible. I'm so sorry. There was some power fluctuation and it went off. So I would be, in my last comment, I would be saying that in tiger reserves, we are including wetland management in our tiger conservation plan guidelines. The funding and we will provide give special emphasis to wetland management in our tiger reserves. We are tweaking with TCP guidelines. We conduct all India management effectiveness tiger reserves independently every 4 years. We are including criteria and indicator for wetland management also. This wetland within the tiger reserves, they get funding support from ongoing centrally sponsored scheme of Project Tiger once they are included in TCP. So all these things, we are also trying to study the faunal diversity in these wetlands, which have not been touched so far with new DNA technology with the help of CCMB. So all these things we are doing and will be taking care of wetlands which are part of tiger reserves. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, sir, for covering all the three aspects which are relating to today's webinar, that is conserving the wetlands beyond protected areas. That was a wonderful presentation by you. Thank you so very much. Mr. Shaurajit, I would like to request you to please play the video on Prithvi Manthan. Thank you. Can we have the audio, please? I request Shaurajit to please play the video again with the audio. We are unable to hear the sound, Shaurajit. All right, so I guess there is some issue with the audio. Shaurajit, can you hear me?
I think Siddhanta sir, if you can hear from your computer, if video is readily available, sir.
Dr. Siddhant Das ji.
I can also share from my laptop.
Absolutely, sir.
Right.
Sorry for the inconvenience. If you could share,
not
it would
really.
be great.
Let us see if I think somebody else is also sharing, so it is not getting through.
All right, so
somebody
we
else have to just unshare, then sir will get access.
Sir, I guess there is some issue because we are as well as we are going live on the YouTube. So there is some trouble.
I don't think because of the YouTube, because.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. So we can continue discussion and.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So sorry for the inconvenience caused. We will be trying on the video, and surely we will get back with the video. So moving on to our next panelist of the day, we will continue with the panel discussion for the time being. We have our next panelist for the day, Dr. Ajit Patnaik ji, Indian Forest Service retired, Vice President, Wetlands International South Asia, former PCCF government of Odisha. Sharing and talking about his background, he is the former Principal Chief Conservator of Forests, Government of Odisha, and Chief Executive, Shilika Development Authority. Dr. Patnaik ji has over 35 years of varied professional experience of Indian Forest Service, particularly in the field of management of wetlands, lake basins, and coastal zones, community forestry, natural resource management, and community livelihoods. He has represented the state and national government on various international forums as meeting of the contracting parties of the Ramsar Convention and Convention on Biological Diversity, and many more. Dr. Patnaik ji led the formulation of the first of its kind World Bank assisted integrated coastal zone management project for Odisha coast. He has supported formulation of the Climate Change Action Plan of Odisha as the sector head for the coasts and disasters. We are so excited to have you with us today, sir. You may take over.
Thank you, Anchal. Good morning. I welcome all the esteemed panelists as well as the chairperson, Dr. Goel, and it's indeed a great honor for me to be here. And I convey my sincere thanks to the organizers for such wonderful series of webinar on wetland conservation, particularly the state of Haryana for such brilliant idea. Now coming to the three themes of this panel discussion which is taking place today. I'll just begin with a small, kind of statement. Why wetlands are important? I think it's very nicely portrayed by Mr. Goel, our chairperson of this session today. It is really, amazing to know that more than 90% of the fresh water in liquid form is in wetlands, which is far outweighs even the river. Similarly, I think what was pertinently mentioned by Dr. Yadav, the water flows in river, but it comes from forest, right? So many times as foresters, these are something I think why many ecosystem services which flow quietly, so that gets unnoticed. So it's quite pertinent to just raise awareness and perception of the all people about the ecosystem services which comes from the wetlands. That is very much important, so that people can appreciate, and they become more and more conscious, and they also get involved in the conservation. So with my experience of associated with the wetland conservation for more than 2 decades, one thing which which I noticed, it's not only for our country, it's for the globally what I have seen, the governance issues. I think they are the major challenges for sustainable management of the wetlands across the globe. One is, of course, we talk about the participation, and many a times we say the community participation. But what exactly the community, what it connotes? It is not only mere, kind of just kind of involvement, but it is a kind of sharing the responsibility, shared responsibility of management. So when that happens, then only, kind of the ownership comes and they become responsible. Again, I think Vivek mentioned about the ponds. I think that is almost kind of integrated in our culture. And interestingly, one scholar, he did a survey of the ponds around Chilika Lake, which is about 1,000 square kilometers, and more than 30,000 wetlands. It was, he studied. And he found this, kind of huge uses management system, and which are very much in place. So if you jot it down, then it becomes a real, kind of, of course, he was awarded PhD on that. So we have got pretty rich, tradition of management of these, wetlands traditionally. And it is said that once another revealing thing is that the village ponds, which are being managed by the villagers, after the Britishers took over, what happened, that management system, they kind of said that, okay, it would be done by the government. You pay tax and we'll be managing your all the government assets which are there. After that, there's vitiated, entire management system, they collapsed in certain, kind of parts, or in some places where the village community, they're very strong, that management system is persisting. So there is a wonderful, kind of, the outcome was so revealing. Why I'm mentioning this? If we come to the today's main theme of the webinar, that is taking wetlands conservation beyond protected areas, we know that most of the important wetlands are either inside the protected area or within the forest, which has been already mentioned. I would just pretty quickly cite two examples. One is the wetland, which is within the protected area. And in Chilika Lake, a part of Chilika Lake is a protected area, and there is a bird sanctuary. And there is an age-old conflict between the protected area manager and the local community, because these people would like to sneak into the park, and since it is not permitted to remove any resources from the sanctuary. So there used to be bloody clashes and a lot of conflict for more than 3 decades. So it could be solved. What happened? They used to put the trap outside the sanctuary and used to get a bumper, kind of harvest out of it. But they always tend to sneak into the sanctuary, and the conflict used to be there. So we commissioned a participatory research by involving these people and a scientific ICR institution, and they found that they are getting good crop or the good catch because the sanctuary is not, though it is notified for bird, but it says it is more a sanctuary for fish than bird. So that was demonstrated to them. So then you would be amazed to know that 3 decades old conflict could be resolved within a year. And they started telling, why don't you create such more tranquil area so that, kind of we'll get better catch. So many a times what happens, our perception, what DG at the, he also mentioned is, I think we had an informal chat was going on before we started this. So, these sort of perception, I think, of the managers, because what even it was revealing for the protected area manager, who was a DFO then, they were managing the species, not the ecosystem. But since they are not knowing what kind of ecosystem services the wetland is providing or the sanctuary is providing, the dropping or the guanos from the bird, it harbors phytoplankton, then zooplankton, and zooplankton, the fish feed. So it attracts. So that's why I think sometimes the management, even in the protected area, need to be more ecosystem based than species based. Similarly, another example which is outside a protected area, and there's a village called Mangla Jodi, where the professional bird hunters, they used to kill everything. I think even the forest, the wildlife people, they were fearing to enter into the village. They were defiant, and many times they're termed as Birapan or something like that. So we worked with along with one NGO. It took almost 18 months to convince them. So then what happened? Since it was a swamp and it was attracting a lot of birds, there was forest department wanted to notify it as a bird sanctuary. But then these people, they kind of vehemently opposed. So now, with persuasion, these reformed bird hunters, they are the best guides, I think. And the bird population has increased like anything. So when we even promoted, we said, why don't you, let's go for a community reserve? They said that, see, what is the objective of community reserve? Why you want to notify something? We want to set an example that, yes, we can also manage. And they have really, proved that. And that is being spread to other villages. So wetland conservation, when we talk about the participation, or sometimes we say about the empowerment of the community, what is that? Empowerment is in real term when, they share the responsibility and authority to manage. I think that's why many a times I say, from resource users, we have to transform them into the resource managers. Then only, we can say co-management or the successful participatory management. So I like to stop here. I think there are n number of such good examples. So if we want to, spread the wetland conservation in a real scale, both length and breadth, then we have to, rely on the co-management, and we have to also touch the community. I believe that would really, change the entire world and the conservation scenario of the country and globe. Thank you very much. I'd like to stop here. Over to you, Anchal.
Thank you so very much, sir, for such knowledgeable information that has been shared by you with some very relevant and interesting examples, I must say. And yes, this is the kind of perception. There is a need of that kind of perception. There is a need of that kind of management. And it is so much overwhelming to know about the initiatives that are being taken up by you and other great people. I think hats off to the initiatives being taken up. Thank you so very much. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to hear from a very special guest, and that is Shri Jagdish Chandraji, Indian Forest Service, PCCF and Chief Wildlife Warden, Government of Haryana. I would also like to share a little bit about him. Shri Jagdish Chandraji has worked for the protection of the forests, conservation of the rare, endangered and threatened species of plants, conservation of wildlife, habitats and ecosystems involving local people. He has written over 400 articles in various publications. And for more than 20 years, he has been regularly appearing on Delhi Doordarshan, All India Radio Delhi, Rohtak, Kurukshetra, Hisar, and presenting programs which are relating to environment, wildlife, forest conservation, agroforestry, and tree improvement issue. You are heartily welcome today to today's webinar series, sir. Over to you. The platform is over to you now. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anchal. Am I audible?
Absolutely, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you. Respected dignitaries, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, नमस्कार, सुप्रभात। साथियों, वेटलैंड्स को वेस्टलैंड्स कहा जाता है, लेकिन सच कहो तो वो वेस्टलैंड नहीं बल्कि वेस्टलैंड्स हैं, क्योंकि वो हमें खाना देती है जिसे हम अपनी पेट की भूख मिटाते हैं। जी हाँ, they give us food in the form of makhana, singhada, paddy, fish and all. They help in climate change because various reports and various figures, various estimates indicate that 1/3 of the total global carbon is stored by the wetlands. They also control floods. They act as nature's sponge by absorbing the excess water. They're also called nature's Mother Earth's kidneys because they purify water and provide drinking water for us. There is no doubt that the wetlands which have got legal status, maybe in the form of national park, maybe in the form of wildlife sanctuary, conservation reserve, or community reserve, they are protected under law. Of course, the participation of people should also be there in these protected areas also. But as far as the areas, the wetlands, which are other than the protected areas, they definitely need attention. Now, if I talk about the typical wetland, which is not under the control of the government, what the scene is there? Well, encroachment. Yes, that's a very big issue. Then the soil erosion, lot of soil is coming into the wetland, and then you have cattle going in, which defecate inside, they urinate inside, and that increases the nitrogen level of the wetland. Then also they also act as dustbin. The rural, polythene, kachra, garbage, it's all going into the wetlands, and that is very badly affecting the future of the wetlands. Now, if I talk about Haryana, you see, Haryana has about 6,222 villages, and each village has 2 to 3 ponds. So in all, in Haryana, there are more than 18,000 ponds. And Haryana is first state, probably the first state in the country, which has got pond authority, and then also we have got wetland authority. As far as the pond authority is concerned, what they do is they just renovate the pond, and they also use that for some economic purpose. And as far as the wetland authority is there, its main job is to bring these areas under the wetland network. And for that, already exercise has been conducted, and about 1,200 wetlands have been identified for this purpose. But it's going to be a difficult task in the sense because certain activities are to be prohibited, certain are to be regulated, and certain activities are to be permitted in those. So which is going to be very difficult task. What I think is whether it is a protected area or whether it is the area outside the protected area for which we have no legal control, I think we cannot manage these wetlands without the involvement of the local people. Now, there are more than 100 wetlands in Haryana which have been identified as important areas where the birds will migratory birds will come, they will rest here. Local migratory birds are also there, but you see, some of them have already gone. You see, due to the various reasons which I have mentioned. One is Diggle. It was very famous wetland some times ago, but now during the last 2-3 years, I think it has been silted up. Even we also do some activities. Forest Department is also not only the people are required to be made aware of these issues, but I think even the Forest Department people also need to that to some extent. In wetlands, we go for plantations of eucalyptus and maybe jamun and all those plants, all those trees, where we should not do. Of course, if the area is just adjacent to the farmers' fields, and if they want us to go for plantations, then we should do. Otherwise, these are not the areas where we should go for plantation of such species like eucalyptus. Eucalyptus has its place; it has a very important role, but not in areas where the wetlands are there. Then, especially not only in areas which are not under our control, but some kinds of protected areas like community reserve. You see, community reserve, the purpose is that we bring some area under community reserve at the request of the people. But sometimes you see some people will come forward, but others will not come. So I think for involving the people, we have to follow a capacity building approach, for which we need to talk to people, we need to go for entry point activities. Thereafter, we need to constitute the committee by going in for general election, and then we have to ensure that the participation of each and everybody is there. क्योंकि एक स्वास्थ्य विभाग का मेरे को वो स्लोगन याद आ गया कि यदि एक भी बच्चा छूट गया तो सुरक्षा चक्र टूट गया. Yes, we need to ensure the involvement of women, and among women also we need to ensure that each and every community is represented. Similarly, as regards the constitution of the committee for the management of particular wetland, we need to ensure that the participation of each and every section, each and every community is there. Now, as regards technical issue when it comes to management of these wetlands, I don't know whether this is the part of the webinar or not, but still I like to speak for another 1 minute or so. See, first thing that we need to do is to demarcate the area so that the further encroachment is not there. And thereafter, we should go for planting of certain species. You can take, for example, the case of Rhododendron, which is also called giant reed. It is also called necessary, but I'm in favor of it because it has more benefits than the harm that it does. You see, first thing that it will do is to control the encroachment, and thereafter, it's also a habitat of so many wild animals, wild bird species, jungle cat, jackal, fox, red monia, mandava, bush tail, fantail flycatcher, baya beaver. They all use mangoes. Even they all use Arundodonyx as their habitat, but this is one side of it. But other side also I would like to talk about is that if left uncontrolled, it will encroach upon the water body, and therefore it will reduce the habitat for waterfalls. So we need to remove it maybe in patches, so that the on one hand those which use it as habitat, for them the habitat remains intact. On the other hand, those waterfalls for which the area reduces is also checked. Then another thing that we need to do for conserving these wetlands is the planting of certain trees. And third is the creation of mounds. Within the water body, you need to create some mounds, artificial mounds, and planting of species like kikar. Kikar is a preferred species for many birds, maybe resident birds, maybe even migratory also. And then we have to check the invasion of invasive alien species. Take, for example, the case of Eichhornia crespus is a big issue in our Vindavas wildlife sanctuary, which has been recently declared as Ramsar site. We try our best, but we are not able to control it. And another thing is we need to restrict the use of pesticides, go for other alternatives. For example, Eichhornia crespus, we should use a weevil Neocatena eichhorniae, which is giving good control in Kerala and some other parts of South India. So instead of using pesticide for controlling Eichhornia crespus, Neocatena eichhorniae, Neocatena brucei, these are the beetles we should use. And then you see, in certain cases, just in the name of beautification, we plant some species which will restrict the movement of the birds. Today we are adding those species into the ponds, but tomorrow we will need to remove those. Some of the species which we should avoid, one is Eclipta, which is also called bringgrass. It spreads like anything, and this is also called seer species, along with Rhododendron. Seer species is a species which will use a lot of water and will dry up the wetland also. Lilies also we should avoid, and of course kachra and the polythene we should avoid, and then we should make all efforts that the village waste, the kachra, garbage, etc., doesn't go to the village pond. So I stop here. Thank you, organizers, for giving me this opportunity to speak on this occasion. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, sir, for such valuable inputs. आपने इतनी खूबसूरती से wetlands के बारे में हमें बताया है, उसके लिए बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद. And I think it's a matter of great achievement that we are moving one step ahead towards conserving the wetlands. And yes, community participation, जैसे आपने mention किया है कि जो local people की involvement है, that is a must. So thank you so very much. Now, ladies and gentlemen, presenting Prithvi Manthan, the second churning that fuses Shiv Tandav Stotram with the concept of climate change and pollution. Special credit goes to Mrs. Susmita Das ji, renowned singer and filmmaker. Can we have the video, please?
जराटवीकलज्जलप्रवाहभावितस्थले गलेवलम्ब्यलम्बिताम्बुजङ्गतुङ्गमालिकां डमड्डमड्डमड्डमन्निनादवड्डमर्वयं चकार चण्डताण्डवं तनः पुनः शिवम् जटाकटाः सम्भ्रमं भ्रमन्निलिम्पनिच्छरी विलोलवीचिवल्लरी विराजमानमूर्धनि धगद्धगद्धगज्ज्वलल्ललाटपट्टपावके किशोरचन्द्रशेखरे रतिप्रतिक्षणं मामा द्रव्यपिपासो नित्य निरंतर द्रव्य पिपासु नित्य निरंतर करते पृथ्वी मंथन इसके कारण खतरे में है अपना मानव जीवन उद्योग क्रांति इस पृथ्वी पर उद्योग क्रांति इस पृथ्वी पर कैसा संकट लाई लोभ और लालच ने कैसी मति भरमाई सबकी जीवन शैली से संकट गहराया है धरणी और धरणीधर पर गहरा संकट आया है
बढ़ते उद्योग फैल रहा है रोज रोज प्रदूषण
नहीं रहा है गंगा जल भी पहले जैसा निर्मल सहस्रलोचन प्रभुत्य शेषलेख शिखर प्रसून धूलि धोरणी विधुसरांगी पीठभु भुजंगराजमालया निबद्धुजाट जूटक श्रिये चिराय जायकं चकोर बंधु शेखर ललाट चत्वर ज्वलत् धनञ्जय स्फुलिं प्रभानि पीत पंचशायकं नमन्निलिम्पनायकं सुधामयूखलेखया विराजमान शेखरं महाकपालि सम्पदे शिरोजटालमस्तुना गंगाधर हम सब का तुम जल्दी बनो सहारा सागर मंथन विष को तुमने अपने कंठ उतारा पृथ्वी मंथन ज्वालपट्टिका धगद् 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 ज्वलद् धनञ्जयाहुतिकृत प्रचण्ड पञ्चशायके धराधरेन्द्र नन्दिनी कुचाग्र चित्रपत्रक प्रकल्पनेक शिल्पिनी त्रिलोचने रतिर्मम जयद्वद प्रविभ्रम भ्रमद्भुजङ्गमस्वसद्विनिर्गतं प्रमस्फुरत्करालभालहत्यभार्धिमितिमितिनिध्वनन्त्रिदङ्गतुङ्गमङ्गलाध्वनिक्रम प्रवर्तिता प्रचण्डताण्डव शिवा शिवं शिवं शिवम्
Thank you so very much. That was so beautiful. I think I have to mention here that Dr. Siddhant Das ji is with us, Dr. Saxena ji is with us, and they are also the contributors for this great Prithvi Manthan. And of course, special credits to Mrs. Sushmita Das ji. And I would also like to mention here that this Prithvi Manthan has bagged an international award, and there is a screening which is going to happen in Bangkok this year. And this music video that is based on Shiv Tandav and Sagar Manthan, that is the churning of the sea, it is truly an epic thriller and an action song, I must say. A strong message to conserve our wetlands. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, we are moving ahead with the panel discussion, and our next panelist for the day is Dr. Vivek Saxena ji, Indian Forest Service, Managing Director, Haryana Forest Development Corporation, Government of Haryana, and ex-country head International Union for Conservation of Nature, India. I would like to share here that Sir holds a PhD degree in climate change mitigation and adaptation potential of agroforestry in northern plains of India. He has been associated with the Forest Department for more than 25 years and has served as Deputy Inspector General of Forest, Chief General Manager of Haryana Forest Development Corporation, Additional Chief Conservator of Forest, Country Representative for IUCN. He has many accolades to his name, from presenting to publishing at national as well as international levels. He has been an integral part of the Forest Department Haryana, and he has served the organization with utmost primeness. He has brought about an unequivocal yet significant build out in the Forest Department Haryana with his pragmatic approach and unconventional methods of operation. We are honored by your gracious presence, sir. You may take over.
Thank you, Anshul. And once again, I thank everyone. And my job has become quite easier as stalwarts in the field of protected areas and wetland management, like SP Yadav sir, CP Goel sir, Patnaik sir, they have already deliberated on the issue. I would mainly deliberate on initiatives which need to be upscaled beyond the protected areas. Because as of now, we were just discussing that Ramsar sites designation in the country, presently 47 sites, and more than 95% of these sites, they fall within the forest areas or wildlife sanctuary or national park. So that means there is also need to focus on the water conservation of the wetland areas beyond these protected areas network, because these protected area network, they already have some sort of a formal governance mechanism. But outside these, where these are not the government control or government regulated areas, even if they are to some extent government controlled, but the various other government agencies or stakeholders, they are not that much sensitized when they think of development pathways, and they have to build some housing project or some new colony, township, some new industries. That time, somehow the concern for the wetland gets neglected, and then at the end we end up having some sort of a buildings and infrastructure which we see. But in the long run, what it results in diminishing ecosystem services, depletion of the water resources. And one of the example in NCR region itself is the Bhatka Lake in Faridabad district, where I think 15 years back, people used to do the boating, but now presently it's a totally dry land. Similarly, I believe the Suraj Kund in earlier times that used to the name itself is a kund. So such type of traditional water harvesting structures and all those things, they used to exist, and we need to learn from the traditional practices also, because when the primal thing for setting up of any settlement was availability of the water, ensuring the water. So water, air and land, these are the two important three aspects which are very, very vital for our very survival. Apart from that, the greenery, the forest, we need oxygen and all. And when we use these natural resources for our benefit through various development pathways, but do we really think that the use of these natural resources, in what way we are degrading them? Are we allowing them to regenerate the services which they are providing to us? One of the example is, I think in our childhood, our next generation will never see that. We used to drink any water from any source, and there hardly used to be, you can say, adverse effect of that water related disease or like that. But now in the new generation, hardly we can think that you can have a water from anywhere. The kids starting just having the mineral water. We don't know the mineral water which is source, whether it is from what type of source. The business related to the water has so much increased. Every household has to go for water purifier and RO machines. Why don't we go look towards the nature and go for the nature-based purification system, water purification system? Our Mother Earth and nature has provided us the water which was not dirty. We are only responsible. We have made it dirty. We have made our water dirty. We have made our surrounding air quality dirty. We have made our land resources degradable. So what to do for this? One of the important initiative, thinking of the wetlands beyond the protected area, which has been taken up in Haryana, is the Haryana Pond and Wastewater Management Authority, which was established in 2018. And in a short period of time, it is doing quite a significant and appreciable work. And the main objective for this constitution of the Pond and Waste Management Authority was to promote and monitor the development, protection, rejuvenation, conservation, construction, and management of ponds, and utilization of pond water after treatment thereof, and for management and utilization of effluent of the sewage effluent treatment plants for the purposes of irrigation, so that the more better water we use for the irrigation sources, certainly in the food cycle and food chain also, we will get a better food grade, and then in turn our health will not be affected. So I will just share a small video in terms of prepared by the Pond Authority. So just Just 1 minute. Is it audible?
No, sir, it is not audible. And can you please share the full screen? If possible. Sir, it is audible, but not very clear.
Vivek, we are seeing the text only, not the video.
It's not audible?
No, sir, neither
No.
audible nor we can see the video.
No, I can. She's audible, I think. But,
so was it audible?
no, I am able to hear you. But
Okay. So just let me try once again. Is it audible?
Yes, sir, it is audible, but we cannot see it.
Oh.
It was audible, I guess.
It was audible. Huh?
Yes, sir.
Just so. So I will just show that importance.
जो हमने 2022 तक हर घर में नल की जो बात कही है उसमें हमारा ध्यान चल रहा है और इसी पर भी जो प्रगति है उसको सपोर्ट जारी किया और नई कमिटमेंट की है कि आने वाला जो 15 अगस्त है 15 अगस्त के तक 1000 गांव पूरे हर घर में नल पहुंच गया ये हम के माध्यम से और अभी इस प्रकार का इतना बड़ा आंकड़ा नहीं आया है तो 1000 गांव हर घर में नल इसको कंप्लीट करके देंगे और इसी तरह आगे भी रहेगी जीवन मिशन में ही एक कंपोनेंट का है कि जो जल की स्वच्छता इस स्वच्छता के नाते से कार्यक्रम बनाया पौंड अथॉरिटी का गांव का जो तालाब है उसको कैसे ठीक किया जाए इसमें दो कार्यक्रमों ने जो चर्चा हुई उनसे एक नई जो जैविक विधि इस जल को साफ करने की और बताई कोई IIT के लोगों ने की है उसके लिए उन्होंने यहाँ से एक और पायलट प्रोजेक्ट के नाते से मांगा है हमने उनको चुआ गाँव का सोनीपत का गाँव पायलट प्रोजेक्ट दिया इस कम से कम और कैसे पानी को साफ किया जा सकता है उस पायलट प्रोजेक्ट के आधार पर सफल कार्यक्रम चला उसको आगे किया जाएगा बॉन्ड्स को साफ करने के नाते भी हमने जो बॉन्ड अथॉरिटी बनाई इसमें प्रदेश भर के 14,000 तालाब बड़ा काम है इस 5 साल की योजना के अंदर उसके ऊपर हजारों करोड़ का खर्च होना है उसका कार्यक्रम शुरू कर दिया हमने 30 तालाब इस समय काम चल रहा है उसके ऊपर तो महाग्राम के ऊपर ऐसे सब के लिए हरियाणा प्रदेश ने अपनी ओर से 1000 करोड़ रुपए का बजट रखा है और उन्होंने भी आश्वस्त किया कि से लगभग 1000 करोड़ रुपया केंद्र सरकार से मिल सकता है तो ऐसा 2000 करोड़ रुपए की योजना इस साल की चलेगी बाकी इसके बाद
So this was just you can say that the pond authority which has been constituted and the initiatives for rejuvenation and maintenance of more than 14,000 ponds has been taken. So this itself captures the initiatives which need to be upscaled, not only in Haryana state, but all over the country for thinking of the wetlands beyond the protected areas. I think that can be one of the key learning and takeaway from today's deliberation. And with these words, thank you, Achal, and I request you to take the proceedings further.
Thank you so very much, sir. I think through the audio also you were able to deliver the message. And yes, you have, through your presentation, fairly justified today's theme, and that is taking wetlands conservation beyond protected areas. And I really like the fact that how you have, explained us the whole situation and compared it relating to our childhood time and today's time. And yes, our Mother Earth is providing us the clean water. So some important initiatives that are being taken up by the Haryana towards the same is quite applaudable. Thank you so very much. So our next panelist for the day is Miss Manisha Chaudhary ji, National Coordinator, Page India UN Environment Program. Ms. Manisha Chaudhary ji is working with the United Nations Environment Program in India as the National Coordinator for the Global Program on Partnership for Action on Green Economy, that is PAGE. She has done her master's in environmental sciences and has more than a decade of experience in areas of environment and natural resource management. Her experience is spread across a wide range of thematic areas, including environment education, water conservation, biomedical waste management, climate change, and biodiversity finance. talking more in detail about her. She has worked with a wide range of stakeholders, including national and state government bodies, corporate consortiums, NGOs, technical research institutions. Prior to joining UNEP, she worked with the United Nations Development Program, that is UNDP in India, on biodiversity finance initiative and supported in development of National Biodiversity Finance Plan. You are heartily welcome to third day webinar series, ma'am. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Anshul. I hope I am audible clearly.
Absolutely, ma'am. Thank you.
So firstly, I would like to congratulate the team and the Haryana Forest Department for organizing this series of webinars on this very important topic. I'm really honored to be among the esteemed panelists who brings years of on-ground and policy-level experience on wetland conservation and management. And I'd like to humbly present my views on the three very pertinent questions that has been raised today. And this pandemic has really changed our way of thinking about health and environment, and with more recognition of the importance of nature and ecosystem services in maintaining health, livelihood, and economy. And wetland conservation and management definitely plays a central role to this. And my previous speakers have already stressed the critical importance that wetland management and conservation brings and the range of ecosystem services provided by them. Wetlands are also socially and culturally integrated with Indian society. And Jagdish Chandraji mentioned about Makhana. So I'd like to just mention here that Makhana and fish are two prestigious cultural identity of Mithila region of Bihar, and which is not only used as food products but also part of rituals and many religious ceremonies. So the critical role of wetland management and conservation is increasingly being recognized, also in climate change mitigation and adaptation, because as we know that wetlands are our most effective land-based ecosystem for addressing the climate crisis. We know that the world's wetland are even bigger stores of carbon than its forests, and so when drained, they release huge amounts of carbon dioxide, and hence it's very important that it is protected and restored so that it can provide a major source of nature-based solution for climate change. And this has been reiterated in various conventions, whether it is Convention on Migratory Species, or the upcoming post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework, also in UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration, which lays special emphasis on ecological integrity and ecological connectivity, which is a notion which goes beyond protected areas. And wetlands certainly will be playing an important role in this. Talking about wetlands outside protected areas, I would say that while PAs have been cornerstone for securing wetland habitats, there are several wetlands, as our previous speakers have already said, that there are several wetlands which are located outside protected area network and within a high development setting. And they need governance solutions and, most importantly, people's participation for conserving these wetlands and to enable collaboration between a range of conservation and development sector actors. But while saying so, and this would require a landscape approach and convergence of wetlands with development planning and working across sectors of rural and urban development, agriculture, tourism, forest, fisheries, and many others. These sectors are not only key drivers of wetland degradation, but they are fundamentally dependent on a healthy wetland for the growth and development. So there's a need to integrate wetlands fully into these development planning and also in urban planning, recognizing that wider elements to spatial planning such as water resource management, transport, and agriculture. So wetland management needs to be integrated in these planning. Also, I'd say that there are four critical areas of bringing that convergence of developmental actors and integrating wetland management in development planning. The most important, I would say, is to identify and integrate values of wetlands in development planning and economic reporting. We know that the SEA system, the System of Environmental Economic Accounting and Ecosystem Accounting, was adopted by the UN Statistical Commission, which goes beyond the commonly used statistics of GDP for economic reporting. This measure would basically ensure that natural capital like forests, wetlands, and other ecosystems are recognized in economic reporting. So this is one critical area that we need to address, and India is proactively taking action in this regard. UNEP has also initiated a project on mainstreaming natural capital values in planning and implementation of sustainable blue economic growth in Indian coastal districts in Kerala and Karnataka. And through that, we'll be providing tools and building capacities of various stakeholders in this area. The second important thing is availability of data. So access to databases and monitoring of wetlands will also play a crucial role in strengthening collaborative action across sectors. And there are various tools which is available. For example, a tool where Wetlands International and UNEP and other stakeholders, BirdLife International and others, many partners, were involved is, development of a critical site network tool, which is there. The Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change launched a web portal last year on Wetlands of India portal, which is a single point access to all information relating to wetlands. I would also like to mention here UNEP's Freshwater Ecosystem Explorer, which is a free and easy to use data platform, which provides an accurate and up-to-date high resolution geospatial data depicting the extent of freshwater ecosystem change over time. And it really helps decision makers to understand the dynamic ecosystem changes and drive action to protect and restore freshwater ecosystems. Also under the countermeasures project, UNEP has been partnering with various stakeholders in developing macroplastic monitoring protocol for wetlands. So there are many examples which is there for monitoring and developing and devising data systems for wetland protection and management. The third important thing is the cross-sectoral institutional mechanism. So when we say that there's a need for integrated planning for wetland management, it will require to establish institutional mechanisms for this purpose. And one of the major interventions that was from the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change is the creation of state wetland authorities, with which aims to increase cross-sectoral coordination. And members in this authority comprises members from departments of irrigation, rural development, fisheries, and many other sectors. UNEP is also working with many development partners, water resource department, Krishi Vigyan Kendras, Panchayati Raj institutions in different states like Bihar, Orissa, Kerala, and Gujarat for strengthening capacities for ecosystem-based disaster risk reduction and for wetland management in this context. And then now coming to how can we bring affirmative behavior change among citizens for wetlands? And this is the most important part, as I just said, that most of the wetlands fall outside PA network, and hence people's participation will be crucial to conserve and manage our wetlands. However, the missing link to conservation today is that it does not involve the local people. There's a need to engage and enhance understanding of people on the socio-economic and ecological importance of wetlands for their survival and well-being. There's a need to organize awareness among students and youth, and on wetland values. We need to partner with various stakeholders across Krishi Vigyan Kendras. We need to orient committee members on government support scheme, which is available under various schemes of different sectors for wetland management. Also, if you are aware that under Wetland Rejuvenation Project of the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, there was a concept employed on wetland mitras, which means friends of the wetlands. And this was an effort to formalize role of local wetland managers in strengthening local capacity for conservation of wetlands. a Rotary International and Unit Partnership was for adopting a river for sustainable development, which is locally focused and global initiative that aims to protect, restore, and sustain freshwater ecosystems. So there are many initiatives which is ongoing, but there are many initiatives which are needed going forward. Now, the last part, and I would say the most crucial part, is the financing. And I would like to just briefly touch upon that. The latest report of Unicorn State of Finance for Nature clearly highlights that if the world is to meet the climate change, biodiversity, and land degradation targets, it needs to close off, US dollars 4.1 trillion financing gap, which is there, till 2050. And how the current investments in nature-based solutions amount to only a US dollar 133 billion. So there's a huge amount of financing gap which exists. And though public source will be the mainstay for financing wetland management and conservation, and there are many schemes through the National Program on Conservation of Aquatic Ecosystems, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change is already aiding state government for conservation and management of various wetlands. However, there are other cross-sectoral action on wetlands happening through Ministry of Jal Shakti, through programs like NREGA, through Namami Gange mission. So there are many actions which is ongoing. CAMPA is another mechanism which can be used for treatment of catchment areas. So though public funds will remain the mainstay, however, there are many other sources of financing which needs to be, complement this public financing, whether it is CSR funding or whether it is private finance through extended producer responsibility or philanthropy, or the payment of ecosystem services is another interesting example which is coming up and evolving. We have seen also private sector taking participation in mangrove conservation and hence, conserving and managing coastal wetlands. So financing is and will remain a crucial part of wetland management. And through that, we can address various SDGs and achieve objectives of various environmental conventions, whether it is climate change or biodiversity. So, so these are some of the comments that I'd like to give on the three pertinent questions that you raised, Anshul. And going forward, we need to have collaborative efforts to act on all these areas.
Absolutely, absolutely, ma'am. That was such a knowledgeable session presented by you. And you have almost touched all the aspects of today's webinar. And it's great to know that India is taking an initiative in addressing some of the critical areas as mentioned by you, which needs attention. Thank you so very much. And I really thank the panelists for sharing some valuable inputs on today's theme and following the timelines so perfectly. Before moving ahead, I would like to request the participants who are present here to kindly start posting your questions in the chat box so that we can take your questions accordingly. Also, you may raise your hand if you wish to ask a question. So moving on, now I request our chair, Mr. Chandra Prakash Goyalji, to kindly give his concluding remarks for the panel discussion. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Achal. Thank you very much. As you have rightly said, this was a very enlightening session, even for people in the ministry like me and SP Yadav. We had a lot to learn from the experts that were present in this discussion. So as has been rightly said by Dr. Jagdish Chandar, we should certainly have some livelihood activities initiated in these wetlands. I can share a very good example from Sitapur district in UP. So we have started maybe from around 7 or 8 wetlands in the rural part of Sitapur. And we started with having cooperatives of fishermen in all the villages. And you will be surprised to note that at the end of the year, we were told that the fishery cooperatives were earning almost a total of 10 lakh rupees. And the other part of this activity was that this population of Sara screen in that particular area, which was quite low, maybe around 10 or 11 birds were seen. And they had increased within a year to almost 30, 35. And this project was also considered for a publication in Thinking Out of Box, published by DAPRG on the Civil Service Day in 2013. So this all the livelihood activities, if they are initiated along in the wetlands and the community participation increased, then certainly we have a lot more chances to save the wetlands and of course we save the entire environment also. So I will conclude with a message that let us not depend only on the official channel of protection being given to the wetlands. We should ensure people's participation as much as possible. We should empower the local communities. We should empower the local panchayats and local local bodies for the protection. And we should give more. Maybe not only the we cannot only think that they will be coming out of protection without any legal protection or legal powers. We can think of giving them some legal powers also, so that in case anybody is encroaching on the this wetland or maybe destroying the ecosystem by something else, the local communities can themselves take action against that particular person or particular group of persons. So with this, I thank you all for being here, and I will certainly congratulate you for putting up this beautiful webinar, and I look forward to the other webinars in this series. And let us meet on 2nd of February in Sultanpur, where Honorable Minister will also be there. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, sir. That was such an overwhelming concluding remarks presented by you. And you have rightly said the encroachment in the wetland areas needs to be taken care of. Thank you so much. So we are opening for the open house. You may post your questions in the chat box or raise your hand, or if you have any inputs you would like to share, please, you are free to do that. As I can see, there are no questions that have come up today in the chat box. If anybody would like to share their inputs or any valuable suggestion you would like to give, you are free to do that. Anybody would like to say anything? All right, I'll just wait for 1 or 2 minutes and then move ahead. All right, I guess there are no questions or, all right, so, okay. So as we are moving ahead, I would like to request Dr. Ritesh Kumarji, Director Wetlands International South Asia, to kindly give his concluding remarks and share some recommendations, if any. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Achal. We had the luxury of hearing to the top brass in governance, Mr. C.P. Goyalji, Jagdish Chandraji, Dr. Yadav, Dr. Ajit Patnaik, and Ms. Manisha Chaudhary, Dr. Saxena. Now, there are two things that strongly emerge. I think Dr. Goyal rightly said that if forests are the lungs, the kidneys of the landscape are the wetlands. Unfortunately, the lungs are being protected. The kidneys are slightly exposed, and that is the challenge of the governance. That is the larger. I think if I read the State of Forest report, 60,000 wetlands are located within the protected areas, but a majority, that is over 90%, are outside the domains of our protected areas. Dr. Yadav presented a very important insight that the tiger landscapes could actually be providers of water, and water is possibly the thing that connects the entire landscape. This was also stressed very strongly by other participants. The word, I think, that came out very strongly, and that is very important for us as practitioners of wetland management, echoed by Dr. Goyal, Dr. Saxena, Jagdish Chandraji, Dr. Yadav, Dr. Patnaik, is the word inclusion. So unless stakeholders are included in the development setup, in the conservation programming setup, the task of conservation is going to be very uphill. Now, the models of engagement are going to be slightly tricky here, because the moment we get communities, the livelihood concerns need to be addressed. Dr. Goyal, you rightly said, and you hinted us to a model of Uttar Pradesh, wherein fishermen were brought into the conservation programming, and apart from earning their livelihoods, they have also proved that they can be stewards of biodiversity. The model of pond conservation from Haryana by Dr. Saxena, the classic case of Chilika by Dr. Patnaik give us hope that this is indeed possible. Ms. Manisha, you rightly said that unless our economic indicators start accounting for the depreciation that loss of wetlands brings, economies will stop reacting to the cause of, to the ultimate drivers of degradation. Now, there are two important issues that I read from the webinar. One, that the tools that we use for wetlands conservation and management plans are insufficient to address this challenge. We'll need new knowledge, new insights, and new instruments to address this. Possibly the SIA framework, the accounting frameworks will need to speak to wetlands degradation. And secondly, the financing gap is staggering, with minuscule resources being available in public funds. I think it is time that we actually speak strongly of convergence, a message that again has been very strongly highlighted by Chair and in all panelists. So in all, as wetlands practitioners, as Wetlands International South Asia, on behalf of Haryana Forest Development Corporation, I think we have some very strong messages, directions, and stewardship from this esteemed panel. We'll be writing up a short report on this. Will be available on our Twitter handles. Will be also be accessible to the ministry and everybody who is involved. And at the end, I think the film itself, which Dr. Siddhant Das so nicely introduced, and Mrs. Susmita Das, presents a very strong message that unless we secure strong governance for our natural assets as a part of the landscape, our future is imperiled. We are stewards of the resource that our future generations are to use. So we have a strong liability on our shoulders, and we need to do that with perfection. Possibly, Dr. Das, we will have a positive film in a few years to show that we are actually acting on the strong message that the film has. We will be reconnecting with all of you on World Wetlands Day and beyond, to keep the spirit, the discourse, the discussion on wetlands alive. India is a land of discourse. I think Chanakya's Arthashastra refers to wetlands as Anup, which is incomparable lands. So let the discourse on wetlands continue with everybody on board, with stakeholders, and let the mission on wetlands survive. Over to you, Achal. And I'm extremely thankful to every panelist, every audience who made the discussion very rich. Thank you, Anjali.
Absolutely. All in all, this was a perfect conclusion given by Dr. Ritesh ji. That was what we actually look forward to as well. And thank you so much, panelists, participants, for such engaging participation for today. Thank you so very much. हम आप सभी के बहुत आभारी हैं. We are highly obliged. आप सभी का धन्यवाद. It has been a great honor to have you all with us today. The webinar series, as I say, still continues, and we hope to meet you all soon on 31st of January.
Achal, just I would like to add that there is some change for the 31st of January schedule because we were fortunate that our Chief Minister Haryana, Shri Manohar Lal Khattar ji, as well as Union Minister Bhupender Yadav ji, both had confirmed. But due to some engagement now, instead of 31st, we will have that webinar on 3rd of February, and exact timing we will be posting by today, so that in other groups also where you have posted for the 31st, we will be informing that instead of 31st, it will be on 3rd of February. And I think that accordingly, that webinar will be quite a great success, because if we have messages from the topmost political leadership, because bureaucratic leadership has already given all the support and messages and strength, but convergence of the political thought process and the governance mechanism and the bureaucratic support, I think that can really lead to success. I'm just seeing, I think Siddhant Das sir want to say something. He has posted a message that they are working on audio visual on wetlands. Sir, you would like to add before we conclude, sir, today?
No, I have nothing to add. I just mentioned that we are now working on a audio visual similar to that of Prithibanthan. on wetlands.
That's great, sir. I think we will be happy to listen the great composition again, sir, because the message which Prithvi Manthan gives, it's really very, very good, sir.
Thank you.
Over to Achal.
Absolutely. We look forward to many more such interesting projects. All right. So as Sir mentioned, we are going to meet you for our next webinar on 3rd of February on the theme Wetlands of Haryana Conservation Status and Management Needs. Also be there on 2nd of February to celebrate the World Wetlands Day. That is the motto of this webinar. Thank you so very much. Stay connected, stay safe, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.